today we're going to talk about setting up the vintage left-hand table. Now, there's 3 articles on setting up left-hand tables. There's like setting up the modern table. There's setting up the modern table part 2. And then there's also setting up the vintage table, which I just wrote. So it's all kind of fresh in my mind. And we thought we would just kind of go through this. So let's begin.
All right.
The first thing is, it is to kind of compare the modern and the vintage table. Ryan, you got a picture of a Busher Aristocrat left-hand table there?
I do. Let's see.
And so one thing about the vintage left-hand table that's different than the modern table that you'll right away notice is its lack of adjustability.
So here we are.
So if you, can I draw on here, Ryan? Let's see.
You sure can.
How do I do it now? I don't see it. Let me see. Okay, there it is. There it is. Great. I'm going to draw on here. So the vintage left-hand table, all the key arms go in the same direction. So here's C sharp. Here's G sharp.
Right
you
there.
You need to have a different, am I okay with my drawing? And then here's B flat over here. You see that? And here is B underneath there. And so they all go in that direction. Okay. So all these keys, the G sharp, the B flat, the B, the C sharp, they all rotate the same way, which is the reason that you don't have the adjustability on those. So basically, when you're setting up a left-hand table, so we'll talk about that adjustability. There is some adjustability if you're crafty, and I can give you a little bit of that craftiness in this. But so setting up the left-hand table, you're looking at basically 2 different types of vintage left-hand table. You got the older vintage left-hand table like this one. And this one here, sometimes there's a tab under this G sharp so that when you push B, G sharp goes down too. But can you see that G sharp's not going down? And C sharp's not going down. And B flat doesn't push. I mean, G sharp doesn't go down when I push any of these keys. They're completely disconnected. Now let's look at one that's tabbed. Here's one that's tabbed. This is just a couple years later of an Aristocrat, Alto. When I push the C sharp, the G sharp goes. When I push the B, the G sharp moves. And when I push the B flat, the G sharp moves by way of the B. The B flat pushes the B, and that closes the G sharp. So before we get into how to set them up, there's differences in these 2 setups. You have the tabbed and the untabbed, and then you kind of have this other anomaly that is the aftermarket tab. The aftermarket tab is definitely the most tricky, and we can't really talk about it. But well, that said, I'm going to talk a lot about it right now. But the aftermarket tab it's tricky if someone else set it up, and it's tricky for this reason. When the manufacturers changed the keys from the untabbed, here's an untabbed true tone tenor, no tab, nothing here. When the manufacturers changed these keys, they changed all of these key arms, the length of them, and the relationship of them to this G sharp. When this horn was made, no one cared if these 2 keys moved the same amount, and they don't move the same amount. But when the later horns were made, like the Aristocrat, they definitely cared that this key and this key moved the same amount. So they changed the geometry. Specifically, what they did is they made this arm longer. They made all these arms longer. So the C sharp key can move more, can have more motion at its touch piece, and then it can push the G sharp key. So that's a big change that they made. So some guys and girls will be asked to put a tab to tab this mechanism.
In the video.
And when you tab this mechanism, what's happening is this incorrect geometry is now pushing this key. And the end result is that these keys feel remarkably heavy. So how does someone tab this mechanism and not get this to feel so heavy? I'm going to show you because I got one right here. It's another reason I wanted to do this video. This is really cool. I got this true tone tenor that's untabbed, but I also have right here, which I'm about to show you, another true tone tenor that is tabbed by us. So let me show you what we had to do to make a true tone tenor have a tab. Now, normally, again, what might happen is you solder a tab on the bottom of this G sharp key, and then when you push the B key, it pushes the G sharp. The trick is it won't push it enough, and it's gonna be really difficult to press. It may be better than nothing, but it's gonna be difficult to press. So let's take a look.
Kurt, I think I have a picture that might show. Can I show this real quick?
Sure.
Let me see here, figure this out, share my screen. Is this kind of what you're talking about here?
Yeah, so here is also this is an aristocrat that, or a transitional alto that is like the one I showed you that isn't tabbed, and here it is in process mid tab, and you can kind of see. Let me I wish I could
you can
change
see kind of see the tab right here. I can do this.
The tab is underneath here. The tab is underneath the G sharp, but what's more important is this arm has been extended. And now that when that arm was extended, this whole post right here had to move. Can you see what I'm annotating, Ryan?
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
This whole post right here had to get moved in this direction, away from the stack. That allows this key arm to be longer. Let me show you that in real, what that really looks like. Take a look. Can you put this on me, Ryan? See this original left-hand table? And if you can kind of see this key arm, it's actually not that short, but there's the original left-hand table. And here is another true tone. This is just a true tone. And this is one that's in progress. But here, what we've had to do to tab this guy is take this post off, move it further away, make this arm longer, right? We also put a B flat out here, so we did some trickery on here because, you know, the original doesn't have that B flat. You have to go down to B flat. And then we added the G sharp key, and in adding the G sharp key, it connects to a similar post here. So we moved that post away too. And then down here, well, this is for almost for another reason, but down here we disconnected the old C sharp. The old C sharp was one key that went underneath here, and we made it a separate key that connects on there. The most important thing is the stack. We had to this table. We had to completely redo the geometry of this table to work with the tabs. So let's take a look at the non-tabbed G sharp. It's super simple. Basically, you got your C sharp key, and it's directly connected. See that? To the touch. So if you want this pad to move more, if you want this C sharp pad to move more, because it's connected directly, this little lever is going to have to move more. They're all soldered together. So that's simple, and it doesn't touch the G sharp. So you just let the C sharp open as much as you want to, and you can set that up. The B and the B flat are also really simple. They move on the same fulcrum. They move together. They close at the same time, we hope. And if you want more motion out of them, you just raise both touches. But since they're not connected to this G sharp, they just operate on their own. And then all you have to worry about is rolling around here, which I'm going to talk about later. But this is a really simple and fun mechanism to set up because it's so easy. There's nothing to really worry about. You can do it in almost any order. Now let's look at the more difficult one. Let's see. Let's look at the tabbed mechanism. The best way to show you this is to kind of show you in three different ways. Basically, you have the setup. If you just want to set up the left-hand table and make it work, and then you have you can mess with the ergonomics, and then you can also change the relationship of the key movement in some tricky ways. So first, let me just show you the basic setup, how to set it up. It's also not too difficult. This is the B key, and this is the B flat key. the B key and the B flat key are connected together, and they both come in to the same rod, and they operate on the same rod. So they move exactly together. So the material inside here, and however these are bent down to here, is going to make these two close at the same time. So your first step is and let me say also the B key pushes the G sharp key here, and the B flat key out here pushes the B key that pushes the G sharp. You don't need to set the B flat to the G sharp, because when you push B flat, when you push B flat here, it pushes the B, and the B pushes the G sharp. So the whole stack is going to be regulated in a big way by your B key. So the first thing you want to do is get your key heights. And for that, I use the balance venting method, and you can use whatever method you use, but you need to know what key heights you're going to have down here, because that's going to change the entire left-hand table. So you got your key height set down here. You know your motion of your keys. The B and the B flat key, when they're off the horn, they look like this. They're soldered directly together. So however much this touch moves, this pad is going to move. They're directly connected. There's no way you can change the relationship between the touch over here and the pad over here. So with your B key here, the first adjustment that you're going to make is you're going to set the B key to the G sharp. Set the B to the G sharp. So in its resting position, there should be no lost motion between the B and the G sharp. You push the B and the G sharp automatically moves by the tab in the back. Okay, so the first thing is set the B and the G sharp. Now, when you set the B and the G sharp, you're going to want a little extra motion on the bottom of the G sharp key. And this is how much motion I want in the bottom of my G sharp key. This is a piece of gray ultra suede. Maybe you want less, but this is a good place to start. So here's what I do. I got my B key motion. I know how much I want it to move, but the B key won't go all the way down because the material on the G sharp is too thick. So when I push the B key, the pad's not closing because the material on the G sharp key is too thick. So what I need to do is I need to come in here and I need to sand, let's see. I need to sand the material on my G sharp key like this. But I'm not pushing the G sharp key itself. What I'm doing is I'm pushing the B key. I'm pushing the B key to push the G sharp, and I'm going to sand it down until the G sharp, until the B key can move all the way down and the pad hits the tone hole. Now, if those two hit the body, if this B key, if the pad from the B key hits the body at the same exact time that this foot under the G sharp, which is now connected to the B, if it hits the body at the same time, you're going to get, this is going to feel like a leak when you play low B. You need to have a little bit of extra room to give a little crush where you can crush that B pad closed, and also for the B flat. So what I do is I take a piece of ultra suede, I put it on the body, and then I can't do all this in front of the thing, but I hold that. Then I'm sanding this an extra piece of ultra suede. So I'm sanding this down the thickness of an extra thickness of ultra suede. Then when the B key hits the body, at the same time, the key foot hits the sandpaper and the ultra suede. When I take the sandpaper and the ultra suede out, now when I push the B key, the G sharp key has a little extra motion. This is too much, but it has a little extra motion, and that allows this key to crush. So I can crush the G sharp shut. That's a crucial adjustment. Most technicians are well aware of that adjustment. There's a few places you can put that adjustment. You could have some lost motion in the B before it picked up the G sharp. You could have but at the end of the day, what you definitely, or what you want, in my opinion, is you want the B and the G sharp to start moving at exactly the same time, and then you want the G sharp to have a little extra motion. And while we're talking about that, let's just take a look at the pad. What we want is that now the G sharp key, which I'm pushing now, moves one piece of ultra suede more than the B key. This is too much, but this horn's not set up. But the G sharp moves one piece of ultra suede more than this B key. So when you push G sharp and it's moving B key distance, just pushing the G sharp key alone, when it moves B key distance plus one piece of ultra suede, then your pad should hit right here. So the full motion of the G sharp key should open the pad completely. Not when you push it with the B. When you push it with the B, it should open almost completely. That is going to give your G sharp key a good feel. It's always going to feel the same when the player plays it. When they play B or B flat, it's going to open a little less, but who cares? It's in a trill. It's you need to have that crush somewhere. You might as well put it at the end. That's going to be a much better setup than your other style setups. Okay, that's the hardest thing. Now let's move forward. We got the B to G sharp set up. Now we can set the B and the B flat together. You could have done this ahead of time, or you can do it now. Set the B and the B flat so that they close at the same time. And that you can do by adjusting the material inside between the B and the B flat key, adjusting the material right in here. Or you can do it with bending. If you're gonna bend, take the keys off the horn. You can't bend these keys on the horn, and use something like this. If I can figure it out. Use something like, I have to relearn this tool every single time I pick it up. Use something like this.
Yeah, we just make the tool. We don't need to know how to use it.
Yeah, that's right. So this way you're bending, and a bend is always happening between your two bending locations. So you're bending this part right here. If you're bending on the horn and you're grabbing it here and you're trying to bend, you don't know where it's going to bend. And you won't get an even bend. Okay. So you got your B set up to your G sharp, and you got your B flat set up to your B. Now, when you push C sharp, it should have no loss motion to the G sharp. The tab under the G sharp is now the foot to your C sharp. So when you push that C sharp, it should start pushing the G sharp right away. And because the C sharp is a pad that pops open, you have some ability to change how far it opens. Unlike these pads that close and bottom out, this one opens up. So you can change how far it opens. So the whole range of your C sharp touch should move your G sharp key. So the little bit of extra motion you put in the G sharp is going to give you a little extra height on your C sharp, which is usually good on vintage horns. You want that little bit of extra height. You're usually trying to get more motion out of a low C sharp anyway. Okay, so that is the basic setup of the left-hand table. Now let's look at ergonomics. Ryan, yeah, can you show that? Can you show that? You're just playing with your phone. Can you show that top picture? I'm just kidding. Can you show that top picture that shows like the downward view of this right here? Yeah, folks, what I want you to see is this here.
The one you
right
drew
here.
out? Yeah,
the one I drew out. And it's going to be this looking down. Okay. Let's see that.
Is this the one in the article?
The one in the article. It's the first diagram with the circles and the top down view.
Yeah, let me.
So in this diagram, what you're going to see is all of those keys in line, looking at it from the top down. So it's kind of small here, but you can see that the dotted line is basically your resting plane. This is from the left, it's the C sharp, the B, and the B flat. Thanks, Ryan. And they're all right in line. That's the standard way that like a vintage busher, even a vintage con, that's the standard way they're going to come. Looking at it straight down, you can see that they're straight in a line. Now, if you look at the C sharp key on the left, I don't have a diagram of it, but if you can imagine that C sharp key, I can draw on here.
Yes, you can.
This C sharp key, you're gonna roll from here over to here when you play C sharp to B, right? But the thing is that the C sharp key itself is going to be in the down position. So when the C sharp key is in the down position, it's going to be something like here. It's going to be down here. So now you're going to have to roll. Now you're going to have to roll up to the B key. So in the resting position, the C sharp looks really good for rolling. but you never roll in the resting position. You don't go from C sharp to B while the keys are up. First you push C sharp, so it's down in this position. And then while it's down, you roll over to B. So let's make this first transition a little bit more ergonomic and comfortable. So there's two ways you could do it. You could lower the B key. You could lower it down this way. Let me get rid of that stuff. You could lower the B key in that downward way, or you could take the C sharp and you could bend it up that way. Either way, if the C sharp were higher, then when it went down, it would be easier to roll to the B. If the B were lower, when the C sharp went down, it would come down and meet the B. So let's do a little bit of both. We'll bend the C sharp up a little bit and we'll bend the B key down a little bit. And then I have a diagram for that.
I think it's this.
Great, great. So on this diagram, you can see that the C sharp has been brought up from this level. Here's the resting level. The C sharp has been brought up and the B has been brought down. Now, when the C sharp is in its pressed position, it might be somewhere around here. And it will be a much smoother transition, or maybe even in line here. So it will be a much smoother transition to get to your B key now that there's not a big gap in here. Okay. The next step to this would be, take a look here. This one is really cool. So we lowered this B key, right? We dropped this key down. When you're gonna roll from the C sharp to the B. But later on, you're gonna roll from B to B flat. So wouldn't it be nice if this side of the B key, if this side of the B key were a little lower, so that when you rolled from C sharp, it would be more in a straight line when you roll. But it would also be nice if this side of the B key, let's see, if this side of the B key were a little bit higher. So what I'm going to do is just twist that B key. If that B key was a little higher, it would be easier to roll from B over to B flat. This thing that we're talking about right now makes a huge difference in feel at the end to the player. Okay, so let's take a look what it looks like when you move that B key and you twist it. So now, in the down position, when this C sharp key, when the C sharp key is in the down position, it will more evenly line up with the B key because the B key is lower than the C sharp. Let me see. So when the C sharp is in the down position, let's just put it right about there. It probably is right about there. So it'll really have a pretty good lineup with the B key. So you can roll right here, real easy from C sharp to B, which is normally a tough roll. Now the B key over here on this side, this is now set higher so that when the B key is pressed down, it will be also more in line with the B flat. So maybe it's going to live like right around there. And that's also an easier roll to B flat going this way. So there, B is going to make an easier roll to B flat. Now, here's a really key point. Ryan, can you put this on me for a second?
Absolutely. With pleasure.
Here's an interesting part of this. When you push C sharp, and that's where we lifted this C sharp up so that it starts higher and then it goes down to the B key. And so when you roll, they almost should be even. Now, when you come back from B to C sharp, the C sharp key is in the up position. So sometimes if the C sharp key is too high or the B key over on this side is too low, this rolling back, it's always possible, but it can be a little bit uncomfortable. Now, let's look at that in relation to the B and the B flat. When you push B flat, the B key goes down too. So it's easier, you can have this B key higher than the B flat, because when you roll back, the B flat went down with your B key and kind of follows it over. See that? It's a lot different than this transition where the C sharp stays up and it has to hop up the B from B to C sharp. That's trickier than B flat to B because they both went down and they're both sort of locked and ready to go. That position stayed. So this B key can be a little bit lower. So let's look at that third diagram, Ryan, with the B flat. Let's look at that third diagram with the B flat key lowered a little bit.
This here?
Is there one more with the B flat key lowered a little bit?
I don't believe so. This one right here?
Okay, well, that's okay. No, but that's okay. The next step to this would be, I'll just draw it right here. Whoops. The next step to this, and the final step, if you needed to, would be you could lower this B flat somewhere around there. So if you got the B flat lowered there it is. So you could lower the B flat down there. So now when you roll from, can you see my pointer, Ryan?
We can't.
Oh,
you
can't?
No, you can't.
Okay.
You can select it though. You can select a pointer.
It's okay. Oh, I see. I can choose mouse. Oh, yep. Now you can see it?
No.
Okay, that's okay.
I'll be your mouse.
I'll just draw arrows. When you roll from C sharp to B, you're going to have a smooth transition because the C sharp, when the C sharp is pressed, it'll line up with the B. When you roll from B to B flat, you're going to have a smooth transition because when the B is pressed, it'll line up more evenly with this B flat. So we want to put those keys in a comfortable position when they're in the down position. What you need to not think about is the up position. The up position is the resting position, and you don't use the keys in the up position. You use them in the down position. The reason I think they're straight in the up position is because when these horns were made, key heights were a little bit lower in general, and there was less problem rolling around in the left-hand table. It was more comfortable, and it looks beautiful. But that little change, no one will notice it, and that will really change that left-hand table for the player. So, all right, let's look at what we can and can't change on the left-hand table. Okay, on this tabbed mechanism, if you set the bell keys, you're setting your top stack, basically. If you set the bell keys, you're setting the bottom stack. If you're setting everything that's not a key like this on its own little lever. And even in a way, you're setting those because if everything's low, these are going to have to be low to match. Okay, so why do I say that? When you set your bell keys, you set your B key. And your B key, as we said, sets your G sharp, the motion of your G sharp. The motion of your G sharp is connected, of the G sharp touch is connected to the G sharp pad over here in a somewhat unadjustable way. So the G sharp pad has to open the amount that the low B flat key kind of made it. Then your G sharp is connected to your bottom stack. So these all, to avoid lost motion and things, are all going to be set the same height. Your bottom stack is connected via your B flat lever right here to the top stack. And the top stack, so the top stack and the bottom stack have to match. So once you set your bell keys, you pretty much have the stack, everything done, unless you're going to use some trickery, which Ryan and I have talked about it. We're going to do a video about slides and levers, and because that's a really great topic to talk about, and it's something that you got to know. But for now, I got this really probably unclear demonstration for you set up.
It was completely clear. It was completely clear to me when you explained it.
Oh yeah, that's good, right? That's great. Okay. This is the G sharp tab. Is that backwards?
No, we can see it. Yep.
Okay. That's the G sharp tab. And that's the G sharp tab. And let's call this not a root pad extreme, but we're going to call it the C sharp key. So I'll put C sharp over here. So this is going to be the C sharp key. Now, these two keys, they're not on the same fulcrum. They operate, one operates on one plane, on one radius, on its fulcrum, and another one operates on a different radius. They both operate in the same direction, but they don't move exactly the same because they're not on the same fulcrum, like the B and the B flat. Let me show you that quick. B key, B flat key, they both come into the stack. They both run down the same rod. They both pivot on the same exact rod, but the C sharp pivots over here. And the G sharp pivots under the C sharp under here. So if you kind of looked at the top of this and you drew a circle for each one's motion, the B and the B flat, their circles would look like this. But the C sharp and the B flat would look more like this. They're still operating in the same direction, but they're operating on different circles. Okay, so here we go. Now let me get that started. So here's how that goes. So you have your tab here, and you have your G sharp or your C sharp key. It's touching the tab right here. Now, when they operate, they're going to go like this. One is going to move differently than the other, and you get a little bit of slide, and that I can show you right here. Maybe, let me make a mark. This was Ryan's idea. Thank you, Ryan.
I'm always good with the Sharpie, finding new uses.
Let's see if this is clear. See that little mark I made on the G sharp? Now, do you see that? Oh, that's its ending point. I marked it on the wrong. That's okay. Can you see that it moves a little bit compared to that mark? It's hard to see.
Slight slide. Yeah.
Let me try on this one. I'm going to mark the C sharp key, and it pretty much lines up with the G sharp. And then when I push it, the G sharp is further in that direction. It sort of slides over that way. Okay. Anytime that you have slide going on an instrument, you can use that to your advantage. So here's the G sharp tab. Here's the C sharp key. Like I hope you just saw, when you pushed the C sharp and it operates the G sharp tab, it's hard to turn my hands. It kind of goes this way. So if you believe that, I'm going to make some marks. I'm going to call this is the start and this is the end. This is the key in resting position. And when it ends, it goes there. It slides over to there. Now, these two keys are not really adjustable in any normal way, but what if this ending position was gone? What if we changed the shape of the key and we did like something like this? Now, the start position would still be the same, but the ending position, instead of being here, this key would be all the way up here. So when it comes down, this key would move a lot less. This key, the G sharp, would move a lot less, because in the down position, instead of this line continuing out like it was in the down position here, this material would be gone and this key would come up. So this key would move very little. What if it was the opposite? Let's see if I can get this. See that? Now what I've done is I've taken the end position that was here and I built a ramp going in that up direction. So in the resting position, the key would be the same. That means that the G sharp pad would be closed. Everything would be cool. The B key or the C sharp would be closed. Everything would be cool, just like it was before. You wouldn't have changed any adjustment. But if you came into this tab and you reshaped it to be that way, which truthfully, they almost have to start right away because it barely slides. They do have to start right away. But if you did this, then when you went to the down position, which used to be here, this is not easy. When you went to the down position that used to be here, this key would have to be way down here because this is the new end position here. So instead of doing that, this key would move a whole lot while this key goes down. So if you can kind of understand the slide, then you can change certain things. The first thing that you can change is the relationship of the C sharp pad to the G sharp touch. This is huge. Imagine you have your whole table set up. You feel good about it, everything's okay, but the end problem is low C sharp won't open far enough. That's a real drag. If low C sharp won't open far enough and there's nothing that you can change, the only way you could get low C sharp to open more would be to open up your bell keys. And if you got your bell keys open more, you'd have to end up opening up your stack keys. And when everything was open more, this weird irony is low C sharp still wouldn't be open enough because in relation to everything else, it would still be flat and be a problem. So what you want to do as a technician is get that low C sharp open. Well, this is a place you can do it. You got a little bit of slide there in between the C sharp and the G sharp key, and you can actually build a ramp on the G sharp. We're going to go into this more later, but I'm not going to hold you here forever. But you could build a ramp on this tab back here. You could look at where it starts and where it ends. And what I do when I build a ramp is I actually write on the key like this. I put marks right on the key, where it starts, where it ends. Then I take the G sharp off and I just build a ramp right in this area. That ramp could be made out of brass. It could be made out of tech cork. It shouldn't be made out of cork. It would be too soft. The other thing you can do is change the shape of the back of a key to sort of synthesize that ramp. So you can change to some degree, you can change your C sharp to your G sharp. And not to get off topic, but that's why we disconnected the C sharp here. We disconnected the C sharp, unlike the original one that was one key, and we put it in the stack. And that allows us a little bit of, that allows us some modification to the C sharp height too, in relation to the G sharp key. Okay, so what else can you change? You can change your B and B flat to your G sharp to a tiny bit. Not a lot. You really have a hard time with that because the B and B flat don't have much slide. But they do this other thing where the B key is flat and it sits here and it pushes on the tab. And if you understand what I was saying about slide, you could, if this is the starting position and then this is the ending position, you could change the shape of this key so that it maybe it went like that. So the starting position will be the same, but the ending position will be quite a bit lower. So you can change the shape and use that slide again to change the B to G sharp relationship, but not much. It's really a tough one. You can only get a tiny bit. The other relationship that you can change, and this is probably the most effective one, is the G sharp lever to the G sharp pad. The G sharp lever to the G sharp pad. Ryan, you got that diagram?
I do have it up. Let me share my screen real quick, and here it is.
Okay, so there's the G sharp lever and there's the G sharp pad, and there's two ways that you can make this change. Let me try this mouse thing again. Can you see my mouse, Ryan?
I cannot.
All right, well, that didn't work. But I can do this. You can see the adjustment point. You see that this is the G sharp touch and then this is the G sharp pad, and that adjustment point, right? This adjustment point, let's see. This adjustment point here, I can't circle it. Anyway, that adjustment point, yeah, right, that adjustment point can be adjusted in two ways. One thing you can do is you can move the contact between the two. Oh, here we go. I can do arrows. You could move the contact in this direction. Basically, Let's see. Ryan, can you erase that circle?
I sure can.
Get your graffiti off my drawing, Ryan. What's wrong with you? You can.
All right, there we are.
Okay, you can change that adjustment point. You can change it so that it's over on this side, or you could move it over to here. So depending on where you put that adjustment point will change the relationship between these two keys. The further you go from the G sharp touch, the more the G sharp pad's going to open. The closer you go to the G sharp touch side, the less it's going to open. If you move the adjustment out this way, then the G sharp pad is going to move more. But you can figure that out as you're doing it. For that, I use the same thing. I just mark where it is, where it starts and where it ends. The other way that you can make an adjustment on there, again, can you bring this in on me, Ryan? I want to show this key. The other way you can make an adjustment, and I want to say that we are going to do a video on how to do these things, because this is more, I just want you to know it's adjustable. The other way is this. Here's the pad. And here's the touch. And they come together. They come together like that. You can change the shape of this piece or the shape of, that's hard to hold, of this piece. And that will change the relationship of these two keys. You want to do that judiciously. You want to know what you're trying to get and be sure that you're getting, because you're making kind of a somewhat permanent adjustment to the key. But if you change the shape of these keys, you can change the relationship between the G sharp touch and the G sharp pad. Okay. That is the vintage left-hand table. Do we have any questions, Ryan?
No questions. I think everybody and is hopefully understanding, at least I did,